Today's speaker is Mark, and sorry, he is Ostrander. Okay, I pronounced it right. Mark Ostrander. He is a former firefighter, actually battalion chief. Currently a community emergency response team instructor and volunteer. He teaches CPR, first aid, BOS, basic life support, and he helps converted an old fire station to a community resource center. He aids in wildlife resiliency efforts, serves as a president and of the Real East County Fire Safe Council, and is a board member of San Isidro Health. I know Mark personally, because we were both been involved in Tzu Buddhist Relief, Compassion Relief Organization. Mark had encountered Buddhism and Buddhist Tzu Foundation during the 2003 Cedar fires, um, volunteer relief efforts there in San Diego, East San Diego, Julian area. Um, he became a Tzu volunteer commissioner in 2011 and took Buddhist refuge under Master Zheng of Tzu. Um, through Tzu Buddhism teachings, he thought about the suffering of animals and also the environmental problems that caused by like meat livestock raising, and chose to become vegetarian in 2012. He encourages vegetarianism to help reduce our footprint on Earth and to reduce our consumption of resources. So without further ado, I introduce my personal friend and an amazing human being, Mark.
First, I want to thank Venerable for inviting me to speak. And brothers and sisters, I'm glad to come and talk with all of you. Um, I started my journey on vegetarianism probably when I was a young child. I did not like meat, but in our culture and parents and that, they taught me you got to eat meat. Everything was taught you got to eat meat. I resisted for quite a while, but then eventually required to taste. And when I encountered Suchi and then started following about adopting a vegetarian lifestyle. I started with that meatless Mondays, and then I went to meatless Wednesday, and then meatless Friday. It took less than a month, but really put it soundly into my heart and my mind not to eat meat. Was I watched our college kids do a performance, and they're showing the slaughter of animals and acting it out on stage. And it was uh, made me really look at it at a different light. I didn't want to ever touch meat again after that, watching that. And then going through the sutras, reading about sentient beings and whatnot, not to do any harm, that even more deeply rooted with me. I've heard people say it's hard to take a vegetarian diet. It's not. It's really easy. It's just where you put your mind at. Do you want to do this? Do you believe in what you're being taught with the sutras and the reading? And what it helps to do the environment by taking this vegetarian diet. It takes up less land, um, and it takes up less water, and there's less um, ozone causing gases going into the atmosphere. And the other part of it is the being humane to those all living beings. Um, if you look at an animal, and we all have our pets, I'm sure, and would you eat them? So look at the rest of the animals as your pets. We look at everything in our life as a relation. So let's take the animals, make them our relation. They're our friends, just as the plants are our friends, just as the earth is our friend, takes care of us and sustains us. Our ultimate goal is to always walk upon this earth gently, and then when we leave, that our footprints are gone. We don't want to encroach on the environment where it can't be sustainable. Um, so that's what's helped me through my journey to become a vegetarian. And I tell people, start out simple if you can't, give it up all right away. Do the, like I said, meatless Mondays. Then maybe do that for a week or 2 weeks. Do now a Monday and Wednesday. We did ours in about a month. That's how long it took. It only took a month to get totally off meat. Um, we got to that point where we were at 3 days, and that was it. We said no more. I really can't even stand the smell of meat cooking anymore. And then I just think about what animal was tortured and killed so that people could have an enjoyment of something that is not really healthy to them. And you can see the illnesses that are in our world. There's high cholesterol, heart disease, all kinds of things. I recently experienced two aortic aneurysms that ruptured two separate times. And because I was a vegetarian, I survived it. Um, the second time round, my vitals dropped to 53 over 45, and I was still conscious and able to talk to the surgeon and to the ER people. And I attribute that to following the right path of taking all sentient beings as my family and not doing any harm to them. And adopting that vegetarian diet, that's what sustained me because I had no cholesterol. My blood work came out really good. They ended up putting 8 units of blood into me on the last surgery. And, I survived it. And the surgeon said I had the same one. He said, let alone somebody surviving just one aortic aneurysm is very rare. He said surviving two, he'd never seen it. So I encourage everybody to follow those guidelines and not eat the meat and really take a look at those animals. Just look at them and go and sit where there's animals and watch their suffering that they're going through because they get pained up and they know something's not going to be good that's going to happen to them. And when they get to the slaughterhouse, I couldn't even stand to watch that. I wouldn't even be able to stand to watch that because they're a living, breathing being. So again, I would encourage all of you, adopt a vegetarian lifestyle. It's not hard. They're very delicious food and it's healthy on top of that. So I can open to Q&A if everybody would like on any part.
Yeah. So, oh, go ahead.
Go ahead.
You have a,
Come on over here.
yeah, we can go on. Hello, am I muted? Yes, I think so. I was wondering if you have a list of restaurants in San Diego that you would recommend or you cook for yourself.
Uh, we mostly cook for ourselves because I live so far away. I'm out in the East County, up in the mountains.
Okay.
And it's very rural, so there's not many. But in San Diego, there's a lot of restaurants down by Mira Mesa, down off in Miramar. There's the Loving Hut, and I believe that was Mira Mesa. And they're all over. Just
Yeah.
Google it, you'll find them, and they make really good food.
I have a lot of questions, so if no one else.
Go ahead. I'm open to any question.
Um,
Is it?
what about you mentioned the footprint of eating meat. Um, what about sustainable? Like, is there a compromise? Like, what about sustainable farming and maybe like compassionate, I don't know, killing? I don't know how else to say it. Is there any room for that?
No, there's no compassionate killing.
I
Compassionate
guess
killing,
that's
unless you're telling me maybe put, perhaps an animal that's suffering. One of the things we do is we try to relieve suffering. If that's the best scenario, maybe in that case. I've had pets where they were suffering and I would try to comfort them until their time when I could not stand them. We had put down with a pet, and that was just traumatic to me. Um, I would rather be with them and comfort them through their suffering because
Okay.
part of the Four Noble Truths are aging, birth, aging, illness, and death. So we're all going to go through that cycle of that. So illness is part of it, and that's suffering that while we're on this earth, we learn from that. So I try to, just look at it in that light. It's hard to watch a pet go, but would you give a compassionate feeling to one of the parents?
Or would you just be with them while they're suffering? It's better to spend the time with them. I spent time with both my parents when they were passing, all the way to the end, and it was a very good journey to experience that with my parents. That answer your question, I hope.
Sorry, I see, I'm not trying to interrupt, but I see that there's some sound issues here. So I just want to check in, see if online, can you guys hear Mark now? Give me a thumbs up. Hello. Yes? No? Okay, yes.
Repeat everything, Mark.
Oh, I can. Um, so where do we want to go from here? Everybody still hear me out there? Okay, I got a head nods. So, any other questions? Yeah, if you think of one later or whatever, I'm here to answer questions.
Thank you. Well, I just wanted to, I relate to what you're saying, especially your journey to vegetarianism. And I was going to say, my own journey was a lot slower than yours, but I eventually got there. But you mentioned this that meatless Wednesday, meatless Fridays, that sort of thing can help. The way I did it was I read a book a long time ago, very famous book by Frances Moore Lapay called Diet for a Small Planet. And what she did is recommend eating lower on the food chain to try to save the environment. And believe me, cattle and hogs really damage the environment quite a bit. They lead to global warming. I read one article that said 10% of global warming is from methane gas, cow farts we're talking about, and belching and stuff like that. So her recommendation was eat lower, like chicken and stuff. But I mean, that's a start. But I would, encourage people to go the whole route. And but and I got there doing that. So there are approaches that can work. The other thing I wanted to share with you is that I spent my boyhood, my first couple years in primary school in Austin. Venerable just got back from Austin, Texas. This is Austin, Minnesota. I'm
Oh,
talking about. And
you had me going for a
yeah,
minute.
and that probably doesn't ring a bell, but Harmel Meats will ring a bell.
Yeah.
And that's where they're headquartered. That's where they have their major slaughterhouse and stuff. So that was a primary industry there. And I was quite well acquainted with meat packers and people that were on the hog kill really young, 7 or 8 years old. So I'd hear the stories, and they were pretty grisly. So,
Yeah.
if you see that, the problem is that we see we go to the grocery store and what we see is
Nice
meat
neat
that's
package.
plastic. Yeah,
I
exactly.
hear you. Checking in. Can people hear Danny?
Yeah, I got thumbs up.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Anyway, I just wanted to share a few things about that, though, that um, people need to be there. I would my own experience in this and is that people need to be encouraged to go vegetarian, but the expectation that they're going to do it overnight is, yeah, that and so I do like these approaches. You probably have some more to say about that, Venerable, about we have a meatless Friday, is it, or something like that? Yeah,
Everything.
yeah, every
Every
day,
day.
but for yeah. Anyway, thank you.
Well, I'll share a story with our master told one of the followers. He went and told master, he says, I'm 80% vegetarian. She says, good, you only got 20% more to go. So she always encouraged, you know, people to go that next level. She didn't criticize them because they were only 80%. We shouldn't criticize people if they take some steps towards it. We should encourage them. It's about supporting one another, on this earth, all of us, supporting each other. Um, when there's unity, it's hard to break that. There's a lot of strength and unity all the way across.
So there's an online question. Did you have trouble convincing other firefighters to give up meat? And like, I guess my other question is, did you like, how did you relate to other firefighters, or was this after your firefighting service?
During my career as a firefighter, we had people that came in were vegetarians, and we would eat a vegetarian meal, and they would cook it because we didn't know much about it. So it was not a big deal. Um, the choices while we were firefighting were slim. When we got on fire line, they give you a heavy meat diet. We had to take in about 5,000 calories a day in order to maintain our work environment. So we would work 24 hours on and then uh, go to rest for a 24-hour and then go back out for another 24 in the fires. So um, you didn't get much choice. But while we were in the station, and like I said, it was one big family in the station. Everybody's they're part of your family, and that's for life. That doesn't ever, the bonds never get separated from that um, interaction together. We would eat a vegetarian meals with the vegetarian people. So yes, it's acceptable, and I believe it still is, because firefighters have to work together. Their lives depend on it. If there's strife, that can be very serious. So you always try to make a cohesive work group together because you're living together, you're eating together, working together 24 hours a day. So they become your second family.
So I guess I'll have a follow-up question to that. How do you be vegetarian if you were in that situation where you have to eat 5,000 calories like, and I'll say this for my own personal thing, like I have a work schedule that's sometimes hard to cook vegetarian. Like I'll eat anything sometimes. If anything includes meat, I will eat it because I only have that much time.
Well, when we were on fire line and they bring the portable kitchens in, they would have vegetarian options. Um, that it was very heavy on carbohydrates at that point, because and that was what we really needed was carbs, to build up that energy. Um, it's a policy saying that you have to eat meat for the protein to sustain that. And you can get more protein from vegetable diet than you can from the meat diet.
How?
Yeah.
But
That
carbs are not protein. Carbs are not protein.
the protein is on the various vegetables that you get. I can't name them all off, but there are several vegetable options out there that give you significant amount of protein. Um, Tofu is one, yeah, yeah. She knows beans are really good. Yep. all kinds of beans. Beans are good.
Well,
Nuts.
so let me repeat what some people's options are talking about here, so the online people can hear it too. Um, Tofu, beans, nuts are some good protein options. Edamame,
Edamame. Yeah.
lentils, yeah.
There's tons of them. You just got to really look at it and do your own little research and find out what you like. Um, I haven't found any I don't like. Yeah. Uh, yeah. Yeah. It doesn't have to be a bland diet. You know, that's a I've been around vegetarians where they just boiled some vegetables and said I'm vegetarian, and it was terrible. You know, and they could do the same thing with meat. You know, it could be terrible. So it's all about the cook and what you want to do. You can make them very delicious. I had some of the best meals that were in Taiwan, and I actually had some really good meals in the U.S. Um, I really like Asian food the best, so I'm partial to that. So, but there are other options. You don't have to eat just Asian type food. There are many options. Now, if you go into the stores, you'll find um, vegetarian options in the grocery stores, and you'll see even find ready-made meals if you're on the go that are vegetarian and vegan on top of that.
What about the question of hunger? Like sometimes when when someone being like me, um, get eat vegetarian, I get hungry like faster.
Because your
because you're
body's not used
not
to
used to
eating vegetarian. If you get used to eating vegetarian, you
vegetarian
don't get hungry.
Oh,
I don't get hungry in between meals.
meal.
I and So I went through my health issues with the surgeries and everything. I only ate one meal a day. I narrowed down to that, and I wasn't hungry. And I was able to work all day. And now I have to eat 3 meals a day because of my medications and that takes meals. So I just eat less each meal. So that's why you see me eating only a little bit like tonight. I want to share something. Go ahead. I like people that share. You talk about cheese and peanut butter. Those are good proteins. Yeah, I try to stay away from the cheese, and I try to because I'm trying to go 100% vegan. I'm about 99%.
Yeah, so I just share something real quick because I have to go. But a few years ago, I was eating a lot of meat because I was coaching baseball and my son was playing baseball. So I thought I needed all that protein. So uh, a lot of carne asada burritos, a lot of
Yeah.
hamburgers, and there were other things going on in my life. But I went I went into to my doctor and he said, "Hey, you have early stages of congestive heart failure."
Oof.
I was like, "What?" And then they had to cut out my sigmoid colon because diverticulitis. So, and then went into septic shock. It was the worst time of my life, literally. But then, so my doctor said, you got to do something. So I bike every day now. Um, there's a story behind it, but I exercise every day, and I started cutting out a lot of the greasy food and eating a lot of pastas and salads. Um, and working on my spirituality. And I went to my cardiologist, and he says, "Huh, the EKG report says your heart's normal again. Like there's nothing wrong with it no more." Um, and so much so that he's like, "You know what? Keep it up till the end of this year, and we might just take you off the blood pressure meds because you probably don't need them anymore." So I was like, "Wow." I thought once you have blood pressure, like diabetes, it's for life.
No.
And he says, no, no. So anyway, that's all I got.
Well, no, oh, that's a good example.
Mhm.
Anybody, anybody have questions? Go ahead. Feel free.
so online there is someone just mentioning that um, Moms carries plant-based steak. So many options out there.
Yeah.
Um,
Amy's, uh, Morning Star, there's all kinds of them. Beyond. Beyond. Impossible. Yeah. And you think even some fast foods carry that now.
so I'm gonna be the devil's advocate.
Okay.
Um,
I like the devil's advocate. I always like to make friends with the devil. Just don't follow him.
uh, um, two questions. One, plant-based options are some of the plant-based meats and stuff are pretty bioengineered and processed. Um, like for someone like, well, I want to be more natural. Like a grass-fed steak seems better, healthier than a Impossible Burger that they engineered the blood taste into it. They do. They engineer the heme. Um, so how do we reason with, I mean, not reason. How do we,
Look at your ingredients on all of it.
hmm,
Foods. Because even some of the foods you probably eat as normal um, basis and not even taking second notice of the different dyes that are put into the food, even into the meat, what they do in the processing of that. They may be saying it's grass-fed beef, but what do they do after they have cut that beef into the packages and that? There's a lot of stuff they do to it to preserve it.
and then Leslie has a question about what is the situation in public schools that serve lunches to students? Are there vegetarian options for the kids at school? We actually have a teacher here too, so perhaps the teacher can answer this. If Mark already knows it already.
I know some schools have it, but not many. Soy butter and jelly. There you go. Yeah. Soy butter. There's too many people. There, yeah, butter and jelly. Yogurt is an option.
Oh, from the teacher here in our community, our Sangha, soy butter is one option. Huh?
Soy butter and jelly
And jelly sandwich because say someone is allergic to peanut butter. Um, yogurt. Um, Elaine online did mention that prepared. See, I brought up the devil's advocate. Now I'm bringing more. Prepared foods with no meat are often full of chemicals and oils which are not necessarily healthy to the consumer. And I agree with that. I also think Mark was mentioning that prepared meal food with meat is also sometimes full of chemicals and oils, is my understanding. Because
read your ingredients on the package.
he's saying read your ingredients are on your package.
Fresh is best.
Fresh is best. And then the question from Lee online. Most animals are fed hormones for faster growth, which mean you eat as well as a meat eater, with chicken being the worst. Actually, I may have to interject on that one. I believe that chickens are, at least in the United States, are prevented to have hormones. I did research on that one before. I do not know if that has changed, but that is something I've read before.
There's a few that don't inject them with hormones, but they inject them with others. And if you saw that how they set up the chickens as they go through for egg production or meat production, they cut off the beaks of the chickens when they're young so that they don't peck each other. So yeah, no, yeah, you need to watch some of the processes that the animals go through before, that are used for food production. It's not very pretty. I wouldn't never want to be treated that way. And so I would not want to come back as a chicken if I had treated a chicken that way.
Now, continuing my devil's journey, what, how do you approach somebody? Because like I don't want to like if I have a militant vegan nearby, I avoid them like I avoid. I like you don't want to be preachy, you don't want to be like I'm all that and you're not. How do you approach someone with compassion and gentleness and understanding where they are? And like, like how do you encourage somebody? Like, because you don't want to come out as holier than thou.
No, no. When I
functions and things like that, friends that aren't vegetarian, they'll, I just tell them, hey, I'm a vegetarian, and I leave it at that. They always make the effort to make me a vegetarian meal. Same for my wife if we're out and with them. And they go, well, what do you eat? And then, we'll make them a dish and say, here, try this. And they say, hey, it was pretty good. And, they'll start eating something. It's better to if you can get just if everybody ate vegetarian one day a week all throughout the world, we could do a serious reduction on resources, on the usage and some of the cruelty to animals. I don't go and tell people, you must be a vegetarian. I'm not in your face type of person. It's a choice. It was my choice to become a vegetarian, just as each and everyone's individual choice what they want to do. I don't say, well, you don't eat meat. I just say, I don't eat meat. So that's how I approach it. Uh, you have to use compassion when you are talking about your lifestyle to others, and as well be compassionate with their beliefs. Um, the Buddha also taught us to use skillful means of teaching people. So get and associate with them and listen to them and talk with them and just tell them why you made those choices. Don't say you have to become one because people resist when you tell them they have to do something. You ask them, do you want to try something?
Marissa, would you repeat the recruits at the Marine Corps recruit depot have the opportunity and the basis to eat vegetarian? They can eat vegetarian.
Yes, yes,
And that's at the Marine Corps recruit depot.
yeah.
All those recruits.
So just from this Sangha here, the community here, Danny brought up that the recruits at Marine Corps training recruits at the depot have the option of having vegetarian meals.
Yeah, all military now. Yes.
And then
Where they're housing or feeding, they have the option to have a vegetarian meal if they want.
You asked how much weight do you put on organic choices?
another questioner, I guess I'm here to talk to relay the stories and the questions. How much weight do you put on organic, um, like organic veggie versus like conventional?
I lost weight.
No. Wait, in as in how much emphasis do you have to would you want to emphasize?
Yeah, your choice.
Yeah, would
Oh, your choice of
Yeah,
organic.
organic or non-organic. What's your
Well, unfortunately, in the U.S., organic is not in the sense like we think it is. There is, because I live next to an organic farm. They would kill any animal that came onto the farm because they couldn't touch any of the ground. And they used some sprays to eliminate pests. Um, so it's not as organic as you think. Probably the best organic is your own grown food.
yeah.
It's, it's there's a lot of rules and regulations about organic farms in the U.S. What they can do, what they have to do, what they can't do, et cetera, et cetera. So
so
organic food can be misleading in the sense that you're at the market. You need to know. We used to live in a time where everybody knew who produced your food. You would know the local farmer. You would get the vegetables from them, and they were eating the same stuff. But we've gone away from that and went to the bigger industrial type farming. And with that came different means of growing. They hybrid the seeds and then they genetically altered them. Uh, if you take like an avocado from a store, try to grow a avocado tree that will produce fruit. It won't. They genetically engineer it so it can't. Every now and then you might get one if you got lucky. And the seeds that you would get off the some of the plants when you grow them in yourself, unless they're hereditary seeds, um, they won't produce the seeds that they produce won't grow again.
It's all engineered into the food. It's engineered into the plants because if you can produce your own seeds from the food you grew, you won't buy seeds from them. And they have monopolies on some of the seed production. Who has the right to sell the wheat? Who has the patents on this and that? So
And we got two questions online. Well, two kind of comments. Um, One, if someone found out I'm a vegetarian, like if, for example, a group going to a restaurant, they usually ask, "How long have I been vegetarian?" And no other
yep.
questions. Maybe they are just polite and don't want to ask further. Other experiences by those present? Like, do people ask you more questions, or they kind of feel like, "Oh, I don't really want to talk about this now."
I found that people get curious. If you don't push it, no, that's well, how long you been a vegetarian? Because they're surprised, like, well, you were a firefighter, you were this, how long have you been a vegetarian? And I tell them how long, and they go, well, what made you become a vegetarian? So you always answer back and allow that open-ended answer so that they may ask more questions. If you put it a closed-ended question, that's the end of this discussion. Always ask an open-ended question or give an open-ended answer.
And then another question from online, from Elaine. Hello. Of course, there are chemicals in everything that's prepared. I cook many of my own meals with beans, rice, lentils, etc. to avoid chemicals. It's more challenging to eat vegetarian if you have no tolerance of soy.
You don't have you don't have to eat soy all the
Oh,
time.
I
Just
know. Yeah,
have a
yeah.
soy intolerance. There's vegetarians I know that don't eat soy because they are allergic to it or can't tolerate it. It's just like people that drank milk and have lactose intolerant. They don't drink milk. They'll drink almond milk or some of the various types of other milks out there on the market, or lactose, what they call it, lactate is removed out of the milk. I don't drink milk, so but I'm just using that as an example. Um, but there are other options besides soy or tofu is a soy-based product. So there are other options. I just happen to like tofu.
And I actually remember there was one lady that was mentioning to me when I talked about vegetarianism once, um, that she was like, "Well, I don't like any kind of beans, so like I don't like beans, I don't like nuts. Name something I can eat." And I think she was gluten, like she didn't like gluten either. I was like, "Great, I have no idea. I got wiped out all three things now."
Well, you got gluten-free noodles. You got
Wait,
uh,
what noodles?
gluten-free
Oh,
if they have a gluten intolerance. There are other vegetables you can eat if you don't like beans. Um, if you can tolerate tofu, if it's cooked right, there's some very good recipes you can do with tofu too. So there are other options if you don't like beans. I grew up with beans, so I always liked beans. So it's hard for me to imagine someone not liking it, but I know there must be some out there that don't.
so two things I got. One, Venerable brought up some protein-rich, soy-free vegetarian food. Some protein needs are met without soy, such as beans, like legumes, lentils, chickpeas, black beans, kidney beans,
Mhm.
whole grains like quinoa. Ah, I did not.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, quinoa, buckwheat, millet, oats, barley, nuts and seeds, almonds, walnuts, pumpkins. I'm getting hungry again. Pumpkin seeds, sorry. Sunflower seeds, chia seeds, black seeds, dairy if you're not vegan, cheese, yogurt, milk, eggs, if you're not vegan, versatile and complete protein source, and seitan if you're not gluten intolerant, like
Yeah,
wheat-based meat substitute. Thanks, Venerable and ChatGPT.
yeah, yeah.
Um,
But in the stores, gluten-free noodles and spaghetti and all that, because there's more and more people developing gluten intolerance, just as they did peanut intolerance. And I just base it on the last, I don't know how many years that our food processes have helped develop those symptoms, the peanut allergies and the gluten. intolerance and lactose intolerance and all that. Because uh, you got to think about the people that when they were doing their own food raising and they knew their growers and that the foods were more healthier. They weren't engineered; they were natural foods. So you got to really do your research to find those foods again, and try to stay away with all those foods that have the dye products in that have the preservatives in them and some of the other stuff that you can read. If you can't pronounce it, don't eat it.
I'd like you to name names in terms of supermarkets or grocery stores in San Diego that you find that would have a wide offering of vegetarian products.
Uh,
What stores?
there's I'm trying to remember the name. Ranch 99 is a really good market. Um, Daniel's Market in Alpine has a good selection. Uh, I'm trying to think of the other stores off by, it's over there by Costco off of Fletcher Parkway. Pardon?
Fraser Farm, maybe?
It might have been that name. Yeah, I just know that by looking at it, not so much the names. Um, and it's like people ask me where, such and such is. I go, well, you go down and you take a right at the first whatever, and I'm used to that kind of direction. I don't know how to tell people go street by street. And head north for X number.
So
So,
checking in, letting you know that there's a couple of comments on online too. Broccoli and spinach are very high in protein.
mhm.
Um, there's a whole one other says there's no she read that there's no advantage of organic food if you're thinking about nutrition. Of course, food sprays aren't healthy for people. Um, yeah. What do you use to wash?
There's several cleaners on the market to wash the food before and then you wash it with in water, and you'll see the stuff come on. It works. We use it because if you look at like broccoli or even apples or several different kinds of fruits, they're all got like a wax base on them to make them look pretty. Um, and you're ingesting that wax because it won't cook out even. It'll stay on the food and it'll get into whatever you cooked it in too. But there are um, plant washes that wash your vegetables and stuff with. Yeah, yeah, and, yeah.
The temple uses that spray to wash the fruit and vegetables. So there's a
And they're
spray
tastier after.
that you can use to wash off stuff. Um, I've seen the fruit and vegetable spray, but I was wondering if like just even regular vinegar and stuff can work.
It probably would. I never tried it, but it probably would. Yeah, it won't hurt you. Yeah. Ingest vinegar.
So some people use baking soda and vinegar. I thought that will take off everything. It does. Vinegar.
Yeah.
Okay. So some
Vinegar is one thing you could probably use. Yeah.
yeah. And then there's a link on Veg Plan and
It's for people to endorse.
ah
When you opt for a day of vegetarian, you can make a pledge, and then you
Yeah.
The impact, in reduction. We can just read it. We don't want
Yeah.
to- Yeah, the reduction in tree cutting, the water that is safe.
We lose everybody.
Yep.
It timed out.
no. So this is this is a thing called Veg Plan that the temple has, and you can you can it's
Yes.
a global thing that you can record, how much vegetarianism you're eating and it's like something to if it helps you as a tool, um you can use it. So you can just go to click and do it. So it's called vegdays.org or if you click here on one of the chat links, it's Veg Plan.
11. Yeah. I signed up for that many years now.
yeah, you can.
Oh, wow, really?
Just the indoors and.
Yeah.
Yeah. You can pledge and endorse.
Um,
Days.org. Vetdays.org.
Veg Day, VEG days.org.
So yes, veg plans on the link on the right, and also vegdays.org are options.
Come on and ask.
We talked about eating uh cleanly, like looking at ingredients, but I find that the more clean products are at stores, clean as in like no like less preservatives or um what you call it, not synthetic, what's the word? Not natural.
artificial.
Yeah, more artificial things are in the product. Or the less artificial and less preservatives, it gets pricier. Like in your experience or anybody else's, would it be in your experience, is it just more expensive to eat cleanly and vegetarian? Is that just something we have to accept or not necessarily?
No,
Necessarily, if you go into some of the rural areas, they have that, what they call a
farmers market, and it's local grown type food. Um, Again, you can get good vegetables that way. Um, the issue that you have to either cook them up or use them or get them prepped to hold a longer life because they will spoil in a quicker time than the other stuff you buy in the markets.
Keep up with fresher uh products. I that's and yeah, that makes sense. But I've been to a lot of I used to go to all the farmers markets around San Diego. Like every day there is one.
go closer to where the farms are. You get
Yeah,
the
because
real
it's
food,
so expensive here.
and it's cheaper.
Yeah.
Because
Because
you can buy, like
like
in our
our
area, one family that grows.
food that they sell on the market, but they're small and they don't use any of the typical farming techniques. They are doing it as supplemental income, and they've been quite successful. They sell off all their vegetables, and they're good. They're way different than what you buy in the store. It's tastier and it's got a different taste. And some people might have to get used to that taste because they're used to the processed and all the other stuff that's been added to their food for so long. It's like sugar. People get addicted to that sugar and get them off of it.
I think last question from me, is there do you know of any like vegetarian support groups?
Um, Actually, no, I don't. I tried to start one up where I'm at, and there are quite a few, but it's hard to get people. So I'm
Yeah.
gonna start one with a group with training, um, for
For
our organizations for, when they.
they're going to start become they wanting to become vegetarians, but we're going to do a English speaking group and book study along with encouragement to follow vegetarian and how to go about it. So we'll do that online because they're all across the U.S. But as far as groups, there's probably some out there. I don't know. I haven't found
If so yeah, I was thinking it'd be a good idea to make one and have all of the like education about the cruelty.
Task for you to
Yeah,
start.
yeah, let's do it.
There
it.
you go, you go.
Start your group. That's how you can start those things. That's how I started many things. That you just say somebody has to start doing something. If you don't take the first step, you don't move anywhere.
Hi, excuse
Yeah,
me.
so
Could you
thank
hear
you,
me?
Mark, for sharing all your precious experiences and also insight on vegetarianism. So just kind of like to add on to what we have discussed so far, whether one opt for vegetarian or veganism, I think the main practice behind it is compassion.
Gosh, yes.
um, Compassion towards the living beings, whether it's animals or even the planets. Everything that we do is out of compassion and loving kindness. And with that practice in mind, in whenever we are in a situation or challenges, whether it is the cost, whether it is the environment that we're in, sometimes, that might be choices that we don't have,
Right.
especially if a person is living in a high altitude environment or place. Having vegetarian option might not be many. So, but then we just try to remind ourselves that this is the practice of compassion. We just weigh on which are the best option. And the same goes to sometimes is uh, we are concerned about the cost. Sometimes when you offer a vegetarian meal, when you go to restaurants, sometimes it might be pricier
Yeah.
than
Yep.
a regular meal. But then whenever we have options, we can try cooking at home. We can, try different options. And but then we just go back to the main intention behind it.
Yep.
Yes.
Being mindful and what our
Yes, being mindful, and just like Verbal Master, our founder, always reminded us when there's Dharma, that's always the way.
yes.
So we try to work our way whenever it's possible. Then we go for vegetarian or vegan meal. Yeah, yeah, and always remember, some of us, like most of us, have 3 meals every day. Imagine the impact that we can change, reduce, or we can see how interconnected we are in so many ways with the animals, with the plants, the planets, the environment, the water that we can save, the trees that we reduce in cutting. And sometimes when you get the opportunity, you look at the documentary when it comes to industrial farming. So it's like what Mark has mentioned. Like I didn't know that the chicken, like the chick, were being cut off the beak. That was like unimaginable.
Yeah.
And this is just one of the many. But whatever that we try to do, we just try to go back to our original intention. What is our main intention of doing that? So that will motivate us and encourage us more in what we want to do.
Mhm. And in my mind, when I get into a tough situation, maybe where I'm going to get angry or whatever, and it's from the Sutra of Infinite Meanings, and it was under virtues. Um, with minds tranquil and clear, with vows as vast as the universe, they may remain unwavering for countless kalpas. Dharma doors readily appear in front of them, and they understand all Dharma thoroughly. I recite that over and over in my head, and that helps me focus that we're on this journey of that Bodhisattva path, and we're practitioners, so we'll make mistakes, but we need to find those things that will ground us and keep us focused on what we're doing.
Mhm.
Thank you, Lord. Thank you.
Excuse me, could you hear me clearly?
So one more comment online is Elaine eats broccoli almost every day. Need to read more about nutritional values and more vegetables. Thank you for the encouragement and information to eat a more vegetarian diet.
Cauliflower.
She, she says option of Mark says option of cauliflower too. So that way we have more than one option of broccoli. One thing I might add for me that has helped my family to be more vegetarian is to do a CSA box. Basically community so it's a box that gets delivered. You can set it like weekly, bi-weekly from a farm, a local farm in San Diego. And Sometimes I get vegetables. I'm like, what the heck? I have to Google it. But that's okay. I learned something new, and I'm like, I'll cook a fennel, and it's actually decent. Um, and so that's one way. Um, I try to cook. Now there is someone who raised their hand in Los Angeles. Hi, Los Angeles person. Can you
Yes,
unmute yourself?
yeah, I did unmute. Could you hear me? Oh, hello.
Yes, we heard you.
Okay, hi. So, my question is, today's topic is vegetarianism impact on environmental and spiritual preservation. So about spiritual preservation, I feel is clearly explained about cultivate our compassion and love and kindness. However, for environmental part, could you give a short summary? Because probably because the quality of the the, the audio, I feel like I missed something, especially about the environment. I think it's about environmental preservation part. Could you please give a summary? Thank you.
Okay, environmental summary. If you have less livestock being raised for food, you drop the greenhouse gases that go into the atmosphere by the reduction of not eating meat. Plus, reduce the amount of water you need to feed to raise the livestock, and not to mention the food that they farm for the livestock. About 90% of the corn production in the U.S. goes to animal food, and less than 12% goes to human consumption. So if you took all that livestock production out, imagine how much of that corn would be used for food for people and other. So that's some ways of the reduction. The other reduction is to look at our own living conditions and what we do. Do you turn on the water and just run it and not even think about how much you got, or is there enough, or where it comes from? Um, I live in an area where we're all dependent on groundwater. They came in with some big projects in our area that were solar and wind projects, and the amount of water they took, they hit, they measured the isotopes out of the water that was 1,000 years old. So they're telling us this is sustainable. If they're tapping into water that's over, 1,000 years old, it's not sustainable. The sustainable means what I use while I'm using water and that, it can be replenished like I was never there. That's sustainable. But if they tell you it's sustainable, well, the level went down, but it's sustainable. That's a fallacy. That's not sustainable. It's like you were never there. That's sustainability. So the lighter we walk on our own efforts and on the earth and respect it. I grew up in that culture as a kid because I have a Native American background too. I grew up around those teachings, and we're always taught to respect all things, the plants, the earth, and we say, we don't own this planet. We are only using it and lent it to us for our children. So we're always looking at we're here, we're caretakers of it, but we're only borrowing it until the next generation comes up. And it's the same thing. That's sustainability.
Thank
I
you so
hope
much. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody. Our time has come near the end, so we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna invite Mark to lead the dedication of merit for this month. Thank Buddha Friday. Thank you, Mark, again for this awesome talk and the sharing.
so we all and here we go. May kindness, compassion, joy, and equanimity pervade all worlds. May we cherish and build affinities to benefit all beings. May charm, pure land, precepts inspire equality and patience. May our humility and gratitude give rise to great love. Gone in?
Thank you,
Um,
everyone.